There's a certain type of person who never posts anything online. No vacation photos, no life updates. No, just checking in stories. While everyone else is documenting their holiday, they're just living it, and from the outside, it looks strange. Almost suspicious. You might assume they're missing out, that they're disconnected, that they're falling behind in a world where visibility equals relevance. But what if it's the opposite? What if they've quietly figured something out that most people are still chasing? Here's a simple question. When was the last time you posted on social media? Now think about the last time you almost posted, but didn't. That pause matters. Because somewhere between opening the camera app and hitting share, your brain does a calculation. Not consciously, automatically. Will people like this? Does this make me look interesting enough? Does my life look good from the outside? And that's the part most people don't notice. The moment your life stops being lived and starts being evaluated. There's a sociologist named Irving Goffman who talked about how humans naturally wear masks to manage how others see them. Different masks for work, for friends, for family. Social media didn't invent this instinct, it amplified it. It took the mask and put it on a stage with a permanent audience. One awkward moment used to fade. Now it can be replayed, screenshotted, judged years later by people you don't even remember adding. So people who don't post. They're skipping the performance entirely, and they're not alone. Research shows that roughly 30 to 40% of social media users rarely or never post. They scroll, they observe, they stay quiet. Researchers call them lurkers, which sounds ominous, like they're hiding in the shadows. But studies published in Frontiers in Psychology paint a very different picture. When pressure to post combines with fear of judgment, the brain starts pushing back. Comparison, privacy concerns, the feeling of being watched. All of that creates exhaustion. So instead of participating, people disengage from posting. Not because they're weak, but because their nervous system is trying to protect them. Think about what social media actually asks of you. It asks you to compare your behind-the-scenes life with everyone else's highlight reel, to measure your worth in reactions, to package your experiences into something consumable. Even when you know it's fake, your brain still reacts. You see the promotion, the engagement ring, the perfect weekend. Your rational mind says, that's curated. Your subconscious just says, they're ahead of me. People who don't post avoid that constant hit, not because they can't handle it, because they see the game for what it is. There's a concept in psychology called self-determination theory. It says humans thrive when they feel autonomous, when their choices aren't driven by external pressure. Social media does the opposite. It turns self-expression into a scoreboard. People who don't post aren't antisocial. They're protecting their sense of control. They're saying, my confidence doesn't need to come from strangers who barely know me. And here's the part that surprises most people. Those who avoid posting often have higher self-esteem, not lower. Their sense of identity isn't tied to validation loops. They scroll to stay informed, to feel lightly connected. But they stay quiet because they value boundaries. Think about someone you know who rarely posts. When you actually see them in real life, are they miserable? Usually not. They're often calm, grounded, present, because they're living their life instead of narrative. There's a pattern you start to notice once you really look at the people who don't post. They tend to have fewer relationships, but deeper ones. They'd rather have 5 people who genuinely know what's happening in their life than 500 who tapped a heart and kept scrolling. And research backs this up. Quality of relationships predicts long-term happiness far better than quantity ever could. 10 real conversations will always beat 1,000 reactions, but not posting doesn't mean not caring. In fact, it often means the opposite. These people are usually incredibly observant. They notice shifts others miss. A sudden change in someone's posting frequency, a caption that feels slightly off, a story that looks polished but emotionally hollow. They're not disengaged. They're paying attention quietly. Psychologists describe 2 kinds of self-awareness. Public self-consciousness is worrying about how others see you. Private self-consciousness is awareness of your own thoughts, values, and inner state. People who don't post lean toward the second. Instead of asking, how will this look? They ask, how does this feel? That single shift creates something powerful. When you stop managing an audience, you free up mental space. Space for reflection, for clarity, for forming an identity that exists even when no one is watching. And this is where the real paradox appears. The traits that make someone avoid social media, self-control, depth, emotional awareness are the exact qualities social media claims to offer. Connection, expression, community. Social media promised to bring us closer together. Instead, it built a performance economy where being visible matters more than being real. Silence became suspicious. Privacy became strange. Not posting became more unusual than oversharing. So when someone opts out, they're not rejecting connection. They're rejecting the terms. They're saying, I'll connect, but not like this, and that choice carries power. Because some experiences lose their meaning the moment you perform them. A sunset feels different when you're not framing it. A conversation lands deeper when you're not rehearsing the caption. An achievement feels more satisfying when it's allowed to belong just to you. Psychologists have found that people who post less tend to experience fewer emotional spikes tied to comparison and validation. Their self-worth fluctuates less. Their mood is steadier. They're playing a longer game. And that game has nothing to do with being invisible. It has everything to do with being present. So here's the question most people never ask. What if the people who don't use social media aren't missing out at all? What if they understood something early? That privacy is not secrecy. That silence is not absence. That a life doesn't need an audience to be meaningful. Because at the end of the day, no one looks back and wishes they'd shared more posts. But a lot of people wish they'd spent more time actually living the moments they were trying to prove. The quiet ones aren't hiding in the shadows. They're just living in places cameras can't reach. And if this video put words to a feeling you've never quite been able to explain, the videos on screen aren't random. One explores how your brain handles stimulation and why constant input drains you faster than most people realize. The other breaks down why quiet, reflective people often develop stronger identities in a world that rewards noise. They don't just continue this conversation. They answer the questions this video probably just raised. I'll see you there.